We are back with more legal insight from Peterson Law Office.
Hey, it's always nice to have Justin Peterson,
our favorite,
in here in the studio with us. And today we're going to talk about some summertime safety. But before that, I walked out there and met Justin before I came out. And I said, Justin, what is one of the most unique or memorable cases that you've ever had? Because this guy's experienced. He's been loaded up and he's been thinking about it. What is it for you?
Well, I want to thank you first for not throwing me a curveball today and actually letting me know what you're going to say. Thank you so much for that, because usually I got to learn how to hit the changeup or curveball in here. Right. So it's great. You know, I would say one of the most unique cases I've had, it did involve some nurses going in and changing some medical records. And those things are really hard to find. So what we had was we had a client that came to us and said, I went in for a pretty normal procedure and I left and I no longer have my left arm. Right, that sounds really bad, and the procedure had nothing to do with it. Well, what had happened over the night is her arm became ischemic. She was losing blood flow. It was pulseless, and the nurses had alleged, they called the doctor. The doctor said, I never got any calls because the doctor was on call, and there ended up being this really big disagreement between the nurses and doctors on what really happened and why this lady went untreated with these pretty significant findings. You know, she lost color, her arm became cold, it didn't have a pulse. And what had happened is the nurses had gone in through another nurse who was actually on vacation, that we found out, under her login number, and had changed these records to reflect all these calls to the doctor that never really happened, right? And so that's, you know, after you say it all, it's kind of like, wow, I can't believe that happened. But when someone comes to you, you don't know that's what happened. When you get a medical chart, you kind of take it as something that looks like it might be true. But what we can go get, and what courts will allow us to go get, is the metadata behind those records, and that's data behind the data. And so what the metadata showed was the times, who was changing it, right? Another nurse is on vacation, right? And we ended up finding out, obviously, through discovery, that it was the nurses that were there that were logging into her number to make these changes the next morning after they realized they'd made some mistakes.
That's just incredible. I mean, it's a deep dive. I mean, there's a lot.
It's a super deep dive. You got to be detailed. You got to know what you're looking for. We have some great electronic experts that can help us, but in this case, the metadata was pretty clear. We could tell what was happening.
And speaking of summertime safety, I know we talk a lot about just staying safe in the heat. And let's say, hypothetically speaking, I do not wish this on you, but Jim's out there playing a round of golf and he didn't drink any water, heat exhaustion, and he doesn't make it. They call you. Who's then liable because he's on a golf course? How does that work?
There's been cases where, you know, sports teams will have, you know, their athletes running and they won't provide proper dehydration. I didn't handle this case, but a few years ago, another really good firm here in Lexington handled a case that involved a death, you know, for not providing proper hydration for an athlete, you know, that was running, and they kept running him and didn't provide dehydration. So yeah, you can, the coaching staff, the school in that regard, you know, they were held liable, you know. As for Jim's dehydration, he might be liable himself. I don't know. It just depends.
I'm not drinking something else. Something else for sure. Justin, you're so easy to reach. You're all over the internet. We see on billboards, commercials all over the place. And when we get to your website, it's just an easy little navigation to get through there and get to you, right?
That's good to hear. Yeah. I mean, one, we want to be available, and we're available 24/7. And whether we like it or not, I'm available 24/7. I'm talking to people at night. I'm talking to people on the weekends to vet cases. You know, a lot of calls and things, really bad things that happen, they're not a case, right? But it's good to talk through a lawyer to understand, you know, what are my options here? And sometimes the advice is, I don't think you have a case, unfortunately. Or we investigate and we find out, hey, it's not what we thought, it's actually this. But what I have found is giving people answers in times of tragedy and trauma. They just want answers. They don't really even care about the case. They just want answers, and we can help provide those.
Excellent. JustinPetersonLaw.com. We appreciate you as always giving us that insight.